In 1957, on October 2nd, a television show premiered on CBS that would become one of the most beloved and enduring family sitcoms in television history. Leave It to Beaver followed the adventures of the Cleaver family in a picture-perfect American suburb. The show depicted an idealized version of 1950s American family life. A hardworking father who went to the office each day, a homemaker mother who wore pearls and high heels while vacuuming to well-behaved sons, and a neighboring best friend who was always getting the younger brother into comic mischief. The show was set in an imaginary world of wholesome innocence. It celebrated family values, parental authority, good manners, importance of respecting your parents and teachers. For 6 seasons and 234 episodes, from 1957 to 1963, Leave It to Beaver became a cultural touchstone for a generation of Americans. Showed them what they believed their own family lives should look like, or what they wished their family lives could be. 69 years after the show first aired, we look back at the real people who brought this idealized family to life, and we discover that their actual lives were far more complicated, far more tragic, and far less innocent than the television family they portrayed. Is the true story of what really happened to the cast of Leave It to Beaver. Jerry Mathers plays Theodore Beaver Cleaver, the mischievous, well-meaning younger son of the family. When the show premiered, Jerry Mathers was only 9 years old. He had already been acting since he was very young, appearing in small roles in films and television shows. But Leave It to Beaver made him famous. For 6 seasons, viewers watched Jerry Mathers grow from a 9-year-old child into a teenager. Millions of American families felt like they were watching him grow up alongside their own sons. When Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963, Jerry Mathers was 15 years old. He had experienced more fame than most people ever will. He had done it during the most formative years of his childhood. Rather than pursuing a career as a child star, Jerry Mathers did something unusual. He left acting. He went to school. He attended Boise State University. He got a regular job. For years, Jerry Mathers tried to build a normal life away from Hollywood and away from the shadow of Beaver Cleaver. But eventually, he returned to acting, appeared in the 1983 television movie Still the Beaver, and reprised his role as the adult Beaver in the new Leave It to Beaver, which ran from 1983 to 1989. He continued to work in television and film. He also became involved in business ventures, managed restaurants, and was involved in real estate development. As of 2026, Jerry Mathers is 77 years old. He is still alive. He's one of the last surviving main cast members from the original show. He remains beloved by fans of the show and has maintained close friendships with his surviving castmates. More than 50 years after Leave It to Beaver ended, Jerry Mathers is still the face of the show for many people. He is the keeper of its legacy. Tony Dow played Wally Cleaver, the older brother. Tony Dow was 12 years old when Leave It to Beaver premiered. Wally Cleaver was the all-American big brother, smart, athletic, polite, and respectful to his parents and teachers. Tony Dow became one of television's teen heartthrobs. After Leave It to Beaver ended, Dow continued to work in television, appearing in shows like Never Too Young, The Mod Squad, and Murder, She Wrote. He also served in the United States Army during the Vietnam War. After his military service, Dow became interested in the creative and technical sides of television production. He directed episodes of shows like the new Leave It to Beaver Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and Harry and the Hendersons. Beyond acting and directing, Tony Dow was also a talented sculptor. He created abstract bronze sculptures and spent much of his later life pursuing this artistic passion. Also studied journalism and filmmaking. Tony Dow seemed to have found a good life after Leave It to Beaver, diversifying his talents and interests far beyond the role that had made him famous. But on May 14, 2022, Tony Dow was diagnosed with liver cancer. Diagnosis came as a shock to everyone who knew him. He was 76 years old. For the next 2 months, Tony Dow fought his cancer with the support of his family, his wife Lauren, and his friends. And then on July 26, 2022, something extraordinary happened. Tony Dow's management team announced that he had died. His death was announced on his official Facebook page. The announcement went viral. Obituaries were published in major newspapers. News outlets reported that Tony Dow had passed away. Jerry Mathers released a statement saying that Dow's passing leaves an empty place in my heart. But then something remarkable happened. Tony Dow was not dead. His son Christopher Dow released a statement saying that his father was still alive, though he was in hospice care and in his final hours. Dow's management team and his wife Lauren, who was deeply grieved and in shock over her husband's impending death, had made an error. They had announced his death prematurely. Internet had to process the fact that they had just received false information about the death of a beloved actor. Premature death announcement went viral. It became a trending topic on social media. People shared their grief over an actor they did not actually know was dead. News organizations had to issue corrections. It was a surreal, bizarre moment that showed how information travels in our digital world and how quickly grief can spread. Then, Just one day after the false announcement on July 27, 2022, Tony Dow actually died. He was 76 years old. He died of liver cancer. His real death was announced by his management team on Facebook, but this time, the announcement had far less impact, because many people had already experienced his death once, emotionally, the day before. Hugh Beaumont played Ward Cleaver, the father of the family. Hugh Beaumont was not a typical Hollywood actor. Before he became an actor, Beaumont earned a Master of Theology degree from the University of Southern California. He was an ordained Methodist minister. During World War II, served as a conscientious objector and worked as a medic rather than carrying a weapon. Throughout his acting career, he remained an active lay minister. Jerry Mathers would later remember that Beaumont insisted on keeping the set of Leave It to Beaver clean and professional. He would not tolerate crew members who came to set drunk or behaved unprofessionally. Because Beaumont was a minister, he maintained strict moral standards for everyone around him. That meant that the set of Leave It to Beaver was a place where people treated each other with respect and kindness. Hugh Beaumont played the perfect father on Leave It to Beaver. He was wise, patient, fair, always knew the right thing to say to help his sons learn from their mistakes. But Hugh Beaumont's personal life contained conflicts that the audience never knew about. He was married to actress Katherine Adams for 33 years, from 1941 to 1974. Their marriage ended in divorce. After Leave It to Beaver ended, Beaumont stepped back from acting. He became a Christmas tree farmer, staying true to his values as a man of faith, lived a quieter life away from the Hollywood spotlight. But on May 14, 1982, while visiting his son Hunter, a psychologist, in Munich, West Germany, Hugh Beaumont died of a heart attack. He was 72 years old. He never got to see the 1983 television movie Still the Beaver, which was dedicated to his memory. Barbara Billingsley played June Cleaver, the mother. Barbara Billingsley embodied the ideal 1950s housewife. Beautiful, nurturing, always gracious, always put together. She wore pearls and high heels. She could be counted on to help her family navigate through any crisis, from an alligator in the basement to a horse in the garage. She represented every mother's wish to be the perfect parent. She was the image of June Cleaver for millions of Americans. But Barbara Billingsley struggled with typecasting. After Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963, she found it extremely difficult to find roles that would let her escape the shadow of June Cleaver. She was gone from the public eye for 17 years. Then, in 1980, she made a surprise appearance in the comedy film Airplane. In the film, she played a demure elderly passenger who, when flight attendants could not communicate with a pair of jive-talking hip-hop characters, volunteered to translate. She said, "I speak jive," and then proceeded to engage in street slang conversation with them. The scene was hilarious and showed that Barbara Billingsley had a sense of humor about her own typecast image. She later said that she would never have been cast in Airplane if she had not been June Cleaver. She was bringing the perfect 1950s housewife into a modern comedy situation, which made it funny. Barbara Billingsley went on to appear in the 1983 television movie Still the Beaver, reprising her role as June Cleaver. She also appeared in the new Leave It to Beaver television series. She voiced the character of Nanny on the cartoon Muppet Babies from 1984 to 1991, which earned her a Daytime Emmy nomination. But her post-Leave It to Beaver career never reached the heights that her fame on the show suggested it would. She was always June Cleaver, even when she was trying to be something else. Barbara Billingsley died on October 16, 2010, at her home in Santa Monica, California. She was 94 years old. She had suffered from a rheumatoid disease. Thousands of people mourned her death. Television fans remembered her as the image of the perfect television mother. Ken Osmond played Eddie Haskell, Wally's best friend and the mischievous neighbor who was always causing trouble. Eddie Haskell was the scene stealer of Leave It to Beaver. He was charming and flattering to adults, calling Beaver's mother lovely and complimenting the family at every turn. But when adults were not around, he showed his true colors. Sarcastic, manipulative, and always getting the Cleaver brothers into trouble. Character of Eddie Haskell became so iconic that his name became synonymous with a certain type of person. Someone who is two-faced, overly polite to authority figures while being mean-spirited to peers. Ken Osmond was just 14 years old when he was cast on Leave It to Beaver. The role was supposed to be a one-off guest appearance, but the audience and producers loved him so much that he became a regular, appearing in nearly 100 of the show's 234 episodes. For 6 seasons, Ken Osmond became famous. After Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963, Ken Osmond faced one of the most difficult challenges a young actor can face: typecasting. He was so identified with Eddie Haskell that nobody could see him as anything else. He tried to get other roles, appeared in films and television shows. But casting directors could not separate him from the troublemaking teenage character he had played. In a 2008 interview, Ken Osmond was brutally honest about how typecasting had affected his career. He said, "I was very much typecast. Death sentence. I'm not complaining because Eddie's been too good to me, but I found work hard to come by. In 1968, when he got married and needed a steady income to support a family, Ken Osmond made a dramatic decision. He left Hollywood and joined the Los Angeles Police Department. He became a police officer. For more than a decade, worked in law enforcement instead of pursuing acting. Then, in 1983, when Leave It to Beaver was revived with the television movie Still the Beaver, Ken Osmond returned to acting. He reprised his role as Eddie Haskell, now grown up with children of his own, continued to make occasional appearances in films and television. He eventually grew successful real estate holdings, owning multiple rental properties in the Los Angeles area. Ken Osmond remained close friends with his castmates throughout his life. He was particularly close to Frank Bank, who had played Lumpy on Leave It to Beaver. Osmond once said that while his character Lumpy was a dummy, real Frank Bank was a very sharp guy who became an investment counselor. Ken Osmond died on May 18, 2020 at age 76. He died of cardiopulmonary arrest, surrounded by family. His son Eric said that his father had been an incredibly kind and wonderful father, and he was loved and will be very missed. True story of Leave It to Beaver is not the story of a perfect family. It is the story of real people who played perfect characters while dealing with the very real challenges of fame, typecasting, illness, and the passage of time. It is the story of people who were shaped by the roles they played, but who were not defined by them. It is the story of people who tried to move on with their lives after a show ended, but who discovered that the show would never really end for them, or for the millions of people who had grown up watching it. Leave It to Beaver represented something that Americans desperately wanted to believe in. An idealized version of family life where parents were always wise and fair, where children were well-behaved and respectful, where problems could be solved within 30 minutes, and where love and understanding could overcome any obstacle. Show was broadcast during a time of significant social change in America. The civil rights movement was happening. The Vietnam War was raging. Social fabric of American society was being torn apart by conflict and division. In the midst of all this chaos, It to Beaver offered a vision of an unchanging, perfect America where nothing bad ever happened. The real lives of the cast members showed that America was not perfect. They were not perfect, struggled with illness, with divorce, pressures of fame, with the limitations of their careers. They aged, they died. Their lives contained pain and difficulty alongside the joy and satisfaction that comes from meaningful work and genuine friendships. Today, only Jerry Mathers remains from the main cast of the original Leave It to Beaver. He is 77 years old. He is one of the last surviving child stars from 1950s television. He has seen all of his castmates die. He has carried the memory of Leave It to Beaver forward for more than 60 years. He remains grateful for the role that shaped his life. He is also acutely aware of how fortunate he has been to live a longer, healthier life than many of his castmates. Show Leave It to Beaver continues to air in syndication around the world. New generations continue to discover it, continue to feel comforted by its vision of family wholesomeness and parental wisdom. Show remains relevant because it speaks to something timeless, our longing for family, for safety, for the assurance that someone older and wiser will be there to guide us through life's difficulties. If there is one thing we can learn from the real lives of the cast of Leave It to Beaver, it is that real families are far more complex, far more interesting, and far more worthy of our attention than any television show can ever be. Families contain both joy and sorrow, contain both triumph and failure, and the people in them deserve our love and respect not because they are perfect, but because they are real. If you grew up watching Leave It to Beaver, or if you have discovered it through reruns or streaming services, please share your memories in the comments below. What did the show mean to you? Which character was your favorite? How did the show influence your own ideas about family? Because remembering these stories and honoring these real people is how we keep their memory alive.